Good evening. Good evening. My name is Patrick Von Dohlen on behalf of San Antonio Family Association. I want to welcome you to this opportunity to be educated on what's truly happening in public education right now. We call this seminar The Status of Public Education and the Grooming in the NEISD. Yes, it's a sad fact that there's a lot of bad stuff going on in public schools right now. But there's some good stuff, and we want to identify that and highlight that as well. Because the rising tide rises all ships. So we want to talk about the good as well, but we also have to expose what's bad. Parents deserve to know. Parents have a right to know. And so for more information, you can go to SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com and find that information out. Also, I want to thank the Christopher Hall and the Knights Columbus Council 7613 at St. Mark's Parish, ChristopherHall.org. Beautiful facility, and contact them at ChristopherHall.org if you'd like to rent this facility. It's a fantastic facility for all sorts of events. And like we do with everything we do, we'd like to begin with prayer. If you would join with me, and we'll begin in that prayer. We stand before you, Holy Spirit, conscious of our sinfulness, but aware that we gather in your name. Come to us, remain with us, and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom. Support us by your power, for you are God, sharing the glory of Father and Son. You desire justice for all. Enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love, and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love, so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you, and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants. We ask this of you who live and reign with the Father and the Son, one God, forever and ever. Amen. If you would, join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I turned the camera over here so we can do that, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas Pledge, Kenny, will you lead us?
Honor the
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you very much. So if you would please welcome with me the President of the San Antonio Family Association, Mr. Mike Knuffke, and for some introductory comments. So please welcome. Come on, Mike.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you're out there viewing this video, thanks for your attention to this. It is very important information that we're going to share tonight. Jordan has done an incredible job, and San Antonio Family Association has been fighting this for a long time. Ken Mercer can attest to this. We did the legislative briefing back in 2019, if I recall. Is that right, Ken?
Yeah.
It was February of 2019, and we had the whole Capitol in and out the whole day. We had the whole room there all day long, and many of your representatives and my representatives could not believe what was taking place in public schools. Now, I want to remind you, this is a year or two before COVID hit, so this was really early on when we started raising the flags. And we had a lot of comments, we had a lot of concern, and from that spun all kinds of other people getting involved in education. And you witnessed Monica with, what's the
Mind Polluters.
Mind Polluters. Monica Klein, Mind Polluters. And so we had her here last month or whatever it might be. So she and some of the people in her film were actually in that room, and they became very alarmed. And that's the whole idea here, is to wake parents up, to wake all of us up, because things are taking place, as Patrick mentioned, that aren't necessarily good. What I'd like to talk about is the reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's what we do in school. That's it. Back in 1950s and 60s. what has happened has been an incredible evolution and not necessarily good. And parents come to us, why can't they just teach my child how to read, write, and do math? And the answer is the culture has taken over. And so I remember back in the 60s and 70s having teachers that were really, really progressive back then. You can only imagine what's taking place today. So what we hope to accomplish today is let you know what your rights are as a parent, how things really work from a legal standpoint, and what we're trying to get at here is we're trying to stop the sexualization of your children or grandchildren, because that's really what's taking place. And we had some LGBT people tell us, well, you're just anti-gay or whatever. That's not what this is about. It can be heterosexual too. It's the sexualization of your children. And it's called grooming. Patrick just used that word. It's grooming. So I have a question for you. If you go into a nightclub and say, we're going to indoctrinate you, you say, okay, where's the beer, right? But if you walk into that nightclub and say, we're going to groom you, just think about that word. That's a whole different kettle of fish. That's what's taking place in many cases, in many schools, public schools, across Texas. And so you have rights as a parent, and what the school district is trying to do is trying to usurp your parental rights. And so we are holding this session here tonight to let you know what your rights are as a parent. And we want to encourage people to push back at their school district level, school level, whatever it might be, because we have to take over education again. We have to teach our children and grandchildren how to think, not what to think. So with that being said, we hope you enjoy this. We're going to move right along. So I'll turn the mic back over to Patrick, and we hope this emboldens you and engages you in something very important to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We are blessed to have tonight a former State Board of Education member for 14 years representing Northern San Antonio and Central Texas on the State Board of Education. Prior to that, he served as state legislature for a term and represented parents, represented the truth, and fought and defended the truth. Fought and worked hard to make sure that textbooks in classrooms were good for children and helpful and factual. Please welcome with me Mr. Ken Mercer, former state rep, former State Board of Education member, District 5, and those districts have been changed now with redistricting, but please welcome with me Mr. Ken Mercer, and he's going to have to explain what he's got on. But he just released a new book we will also want to highlight as well. So come on up, Ken. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patrick. Again, I'm Ken Mercer. I was blessed to serve 2 years at Texas State House, the Committee of Higher Education, and 14 years in education, working with school finance, working with curriculum development. Real quick plug, my book is called Slavery 101. It's part of a series coming out called Mercer Moments in American History. I won't say much about it, but it's talking about the fact that they forget there was Christians, a new group of Christians, who said slavery is a sin, and we need to confront that sin. Somehow the history books leave that out, because in 1776, the whole world was doing slavery, and not one country in the world had abolished slavery. But that's what that's about. So why am I wearing today? What am I wearing today? Notre Dame, green. Well, years ago, one of my constituents, his son, called me, he introduced me as the Prime Minister of Education, which I thought, well, maybe the Minister of Education, because I consider it to be a ministry. And for that reason, but my passion has been, when I've spoken recently at other groups around Texas, I've been Ohio State, been Michigan, Arizona, Texas Tech, and my concern is that we're not preparing our kids when they go off to post-secondary education in college. We're not preparing our kids for what's going to happen for the way they're going to be targeted, attacked in the classroom, targeted, attacked on campus. So I'm asking today, if I'm wearing Notre Dame, but any religious school, Notre Dame, Incarnate Word, Baylor, whatever school may be, to pray for those kids. They need our prayers. They need our prayers, and I felt that I particularly have not done a good enough job preparing them for what they're going to face, for the attacks they're going to have for just having good conservative family values. When you go to Austin, there's two groups you look at. One is called, I call them the $1 million lobbyist in $1,000 cowboy boots. And repeat that, $1 million lobbyist in $1,000 cowboy boots. The other group is moms and dads. And my choice was to always support moms and dads. And of course, the papers would criticize me because all the other big groups, the unions, the money they have, endorsements, but I knew that moms and dads did not have voices. And I'd seen it throughout Texas, throughout local schools where parents go up and have problems and questions. When they go to their local school boards, in Texas we have 1,200 school districts, over 9,000 campuses, 5.5 million public school children. And I see when kids go up to their local school, they go to the local school board, then they come to the state board of education in Austin with the concerns. And I'm always shocked the way moms and dads are treated. Here's a common question. You have a legitimate complaint, and they'll say, well, sir, do you have a degree in education? Or how long have you taught? I'm like, what kind of question is that for a mom or dad? And I make a comment like, these are our customers, parents. And some of my opposition get mad, well, you think children are a commodity, Mr. Mercer, to be bought and sold? I said, what? These are parents. I said, in the real world, if you don't know who your customer is, you will be what? Out of business. And the biggest concern when I have problems throughout the state with school boards is they forgot that moms and dads are your number one customer. But it goes further than that, because my last state board meeting in Austin, we had the issue with some of the health ed and sex ed stuff. We had two gentlemen from an inner city within Texas, an NEISD, two Hispanic gentlemen whose first language was Spanish, and one required a translator. Both love their family, love their kids, and they brought forth concerns about what happened to their 4 and 5-year-old kids, the vocabulary words they had in kindergarten. They brought forth the curriculum for elementary. They brought forth some of the role playing. They thought it was inappropriate because the classes were boys and girls together. The role playing and how far would you go to middle school kids, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And then they shared, and by the way, why is our school district now, they have a US flag, a Texas flag, and a rainbow flag? Well, this was a year and a half ago. And what shocked me was the opposition. And I don't like being partisan, but it's my Democrat friends who went after him and did not answer a single one of their questions about pre-K, elementary, and middle school. They attacked him asking, do you have any gay friends? What if your daughter came home and she was lesbian? Well, that had nothing to do with what the parents were talking about. They're talking about curriculum. In fact, one man even said, are you discriminated against us because we're Hispanic? Maybe you're trying to push curriculum and you thought we wouldn't know what they're saying, what the words are, what they're teaching our kids. And that one, so the treatment of parents has always bothered me. When I hear now the National School Board Association calls parents as domestic what? Terrorists. Domestic terrorists. You know, moms, in Texas we have a law, and Mike talked about that earlier, we have a law called 28003 that parents have the right to see anything taught in the classroom. That is your right in Texas. And I always say the good news in Texas, we passed a law that says parents have the right to see what's taught in the classroom. The bad news is we had to pass a law that says you have the right to see what's in the classroom. Think about that. Well, that's why Texas is so different. That's why we're attacked. And I watch the political attacks now which happen in Florida with Governor Ron DeSantis, and what the media keeps calling the Don't Say Gay bill, it's a lie. If you look at it, the bill has nothing about that. The bill has moms and dads who came, like other parents have, say, look what they're teaching our 4 and 5-year-olds, our 6, 7, 8-year-old up to the 3rd grade. This is inappropriate. Radical graphic sex ed is inappropriate for young children and for adults to be teaching kids this. That's what the bill says. Responding to the voice of parents, but the national media has flipped that and made it sound like you're anti-gay, don't say gay, which is not the truth at all, but it's honestly what happens. The question is not answered. What about the rights of moms and dads? There are those who believe that when you drop your kids off at the steps of the schoolhouse, you've given up your rights as a mom and dad. Let me be blunt. I think it's a lie from the pits of hell. You have not given up your rights. You're still a mom. You're still a dad. And there are people who attack me, they'll say, I even had Republicans say, Mr. Mercer, you're being very partisan. No, it's not partisan. This is an issue for all people. I said, Mr. Mercer, young kids don't have an R or D in their forehead, Republican, Democrat. I said, of course not, but policymakers do. Policymakers, the men and women we elect, do. And that's been the problem. And they forgot who their number one customer is, That's the moms and dads of our great country. There are things happening right now that if you ever watch some of the movies of what's happening in Nazi Germany, Cuba, Venezuela, one of the worst ones that was clear was Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, we call the killing fields. Well, they had a child there, all the children were together, taken from their parents. All the children were in these huts. And they had a picture of a child holding a hand with the mom and dad. And the child, they give a little thing to Patrick and say, what is the right answer? And the child would go up with the chalk to the board and X out holding the mom, X out holding the dad, because the answer was, it's the government, not your parents. That's the message I'm worried about. I look forward to what Jordan has presented today. I look forward to what's going on, and I just say, God bless the moms and dads who are standing up. And I'll leave it one best example you've seen nationwide and multiple times by the groups who say parents are domestic terrorists. They're going to the board meetings. They're saying, here's a book that you bought for our junior high, middle school. And by the way, you bought several copies for different middle schools. It's required reading for my daughter in the 6th grade. Let me read from this book. And what happens to that parent? They're being escorted out. It's called lack of decorum. The words you're reading are improper for a group of mixed adults. But somehow those words are proper for 4 and 5-year-olds, or 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Like we saw again what Florida is trying to fight with their bill, the parental rights bill, which is what it is, parental rights bill in Florida. I'll stop with that. There's much more to tell. I have hundreds of examples, but parents need someone to stand for them. You have the right. Again, in Texas, you have the right to read and see anything being taught to our kids. I keep saying one more example. I'd be a great minister or priest. One more verse. But we saw during COVID, some of the ISDs, when you had school at home, distance learning, parents had to sign waivers that you would not look over your child's shoulder to see what's being taught. Can you imagine that? Sign waivers that you promised you would not look over the shoulder to see what history, government, economics, health, sex, what they're being taught. And again, I submit to you, those things should never happen in a place called the United States of America. And it's been happening. Parents, you have rights. They're your precious children, they're gifts from God. You have the right to ask questions. You have the right to see what's being taught. I'm Ken Mercer. God bless you. Always have a great and have a blessed Texas Day.
Ken, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
There's 2 elections going on right now. One is on May 7th for school board elections and municipal elections. Includes Northeast Independent School District School Board. There's 3 places open. And then the runoff, and then the general election as well for State Board of Education. So what are some things as responsible citizens that we are, what are some things we need to be asking those candidates so that they help prepare them and that we know the answers of how they stand on these important issues?
You need to ask parents, first of all, what do they feel on the rights of parents? Do parents have a place or not? Are parents, I hear the far left often says that the #1 correlation of success in education is parental involvement. Sounds great, doesn't it? The #1 correlation of success is parental involvement. But all of a sudden, what are they doing? They're cutting out parents. You know, the answer, we want to know, do you think parents have a right to be involved? I had some people call me from a school board meeting where some of the PTA people, and I said, are you sure that they stood up and said, you parents are complaining about the curriculum, you'd be better served at home with your kids than being here at the school board meeting? I suggest that parents belong to the school board meetings. And the first question ought to be, do parents have rights? Where do you feel about some of the radical graphic sex ed? Should that be allowed in class? And shouldn't parents be allowed to opt in or opt out of those classes with the kids? Very important questions about some of the critical race theory. The idea of having kids stand up in classes saying, what percentage white are you? And what responsibility do you have for what happened in the 19th century, early 20th century? That's improper. And to do that under the guise of uniting people, that's divisive. And that's hateful for kids who have no knowledge or no responsibility for what happened in the past. Now, you have the right to ask questions about parental environment, about parental involvement, about critical race theory. Again, I would double emphasize the rights of moms and dads to see what's being taught in school, you have the right to see what's in school, the right to ask questions at board meetings, the right to see the books that are being bought, and not just parents, all taxpayers. Those are the books you're paying for, and you have to wonder how some of these books get into the classroom. Good question, Patrick, but those are great questions for all candidates. Do you support the rights of moms and dads? what do you feel about parents being arrested and escorted out of school board meetings for reading the materials that the school board bought with your taxpayer money that are required readings for our kids?
Excellent.
Anybody else's? Thank you.
Thank you, Ken Mercer. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here, Ken. I'm so glad you're with us. And the Slavery 101 books, whatever you don't sell tonight, the San Antonio Family Association is going to buy from you. So that way you don't have to walk out here with anything in your arms with regard to books. And you might walk out with a hug or two from some people, but I'm sure. So as our thank you to you, we're whatever books you don't sell, we're going to cover you on that, and we're going to share those with some of our friends of SAFA. The other thing I was going to say was I love the Notre Dame because you're in the Knights Columbus Hall here at Christopher Hall, and it might have been what you're thinking. Knights Columbus is a Catholic men's fraternal organization, and whose principles are charity, unity, fraternity, and patriotism, and which is hence they have the flags here and everything else. So that's very much a part of it. So, and Notre Dame being a Catholic university, and it's great to have the prayers for those students. I've got a niece up there right now. She's about to graduate, so they all need prayers for sure. And so thank you for encouraging us to do that. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our presenter for this evening. And she is a brilliant young woman and beautiful at that, and has done a fantastic job putting a great educational seminar together for the San Antonio Family Association to be able to share with you. Please welcome with me Miss Jordan Saunders-Cabrera.
Great, yeah, excellent. And can you see the screen? Is there any way, is it possible to turn half these lights off or no? Low battery, that's what happened. Okay, is that better, folks? A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's start this presentation. Now we have taken some materials that are copyrighted by other entities. We are using them under the Fair Use Act, right? This is purely for educational and criticism purposes. All right, so this is the presentation on Protect Texas Children that's presented by the San Antonio Family Association. Now, this is a warning for those of you watching online. You might have children with you or even children in the room. There is graphic content that is contained inside this presentation. So you must be at least 18 years old or under the supervision and express permission of a parent or guardian to view this content. This is for legal purposes only. I am a licensed attorney in the state of Texas. However, this is not legal advice, okay? The information that's presented here should not be relied on as legal advice. If you do choose to move forward with taking legal action, consult with an attorney, but specifically for the facts of your case, okay? A lot of these ideas, news stories, they're really simplified and they're edited versions, okay? Do your own research. If there is something on here that sparks your interest, do your own research and follow up with it. And also be bold. Knowledge of these rights, of these parental rights, is the first mandatory step to take in order to confidently battle for the protection of your children, okay? All right, what we're gonna talk about today are parental rights, mask and vaccine mandates, sex education, critical race theory, which is social emotional learning, property taxes, and then how you can take action. Okay, so first is parental rights. The laws. So we're going to take a look at what some of the federal court, Supreme Court of the entire nation, the highest court in the land, has to say about parental rights. And the Supreme Court in 2000 has said that the right of parents to be an active and integral part of their children's lives is perhaps the oldest of the fundamental liberty interests that are recognized by the Supreme Court. We're going to go over these three cases. In 1923, the Supreme Court wrote an opinion that said that included that a family's constitutional right to privacy was the right to educate their children. Myers also, the case, prohibited states from passing laws that unreasonably interfered with a parent's rights to direct the educational upbringing of their children. The second case appears to be the Society of Sisters, famously declared that the child is not a mere creature of the state. Those who nurture him and direct his destiny. That's important, remember that. Those who nurture him and direct his destiny have the right, coupled with the high duty, to recognize and prepare him for additional obligations. So that also speaks to the fact that parents need to be engaged with their children, engaged in what they're learning, have a relationship with their children. Finally, in this last case, the Supreme Court reiterated that a parent's rights to direct the education of their children also extends to homeschooling and vocational work. All right, now we're going to look specifically at the Texas Education Code for the state of Texas. So in the code, it talks about its purpose, the purpose of this law. Parents are partners with educators, administrators, and school district board of trustees in their children's education. Parents are partners. Parents shall be encouraged to actively participate in creating and implementing educational programs for their children. 2, the Education Code also speaks about mission. And there's many sentences there, but I want to focus you on the last one here. That parental involvement in the school is essential for the maximum educational achievement of a child. Lastly is objectives. Now, there's 11 objectives that the Texas Education Code articulates. Number 1, I thought was very interesting, is that parents will be full partners with educators in the education of their children. All right, now we're actually going to get down to your parental rights. Number 1, written records access. A parent is entitled to access all written records that a school district has concerning their child. This can be counseling records, psychological records, health immunization information, reports, and behavioral patterns. 2, teaching material access. Mr. Mercer had mentioned this in his opening remarks. That you as a parent have the ability to review all teaching materials, instructional materials, and any other teaching aids used in the classroom. You can even review each test has been administered and observe virtual instruction. Now, if you notice there at the end, the one that's in purple, it says, this may not apply to supplemental training materials. So if you go to a district or to a school and you say, hey, I want to see what you're teaching my kid in science, they may just give you the student handbook. They might not give you the student course book. You have to specifically ask, I want to see the teacher handbook, I want to see all teaching aids, I want to see all the other materials, right? So they'll just try to initially give you just the course book. So ask to see all of those things. Next is required consent. A parent has the right to see how an employee of the school district has obtained written consent of the parent before the employee can conduct a psychological examination, test, or treatment on your child, or make an unauthorized videotaping of your child. So, the way they kind of get around this would be kind of at the beginning of the school year, right? We're going to send home a whole bunch of consent papers. Hey, your child might get filmed while they're playing a volleyball game, or they might get filmed walking around the halls for promotional purposes, right? So be sure to read every single thing that comes across your home from the school and find out if it's something that you actually want to consent to. Next is full information. A parent is entitled to full information regarding the school's activities of involving their child. And this is an important thing to note, that an attempt by a school district employee to encourage or coerce your child to withhold information from you is grounds for discipline of that employee, okay? So, no joining secret clubs, no secret meetings with counselors to discuss gender identity or or psychological examinations. If your child comes home and says that that's been happening and that they told them, the teacher or the counselor said, hey, don't tell your parents, that's grounds. You have the right to have that person disciplined, that employee disciplined, okay? This is also a very important and powerful right, is removal from class. A parent is entitled to remove their child temporarily from a class or other school activity that conflicts with a parent's religious or moral beliefs. So, is it, oh, I want to take them to Disney World? Okay, they're gonna have to make up that schoolwork, right? But I wouldn't take them to Disney anyway. But they'd have to make up that schoolwork. But if you find out that something in sex education is going to be taught, or something in a science book is going to be taught that you have a moral objection to, you have the right to pull your child from that class. Again, what does this require? Vigilance on the part of a parent. You have to be paying attention. What's going on with your kid? What are they learning in school, right? Being an active part of their education. And you can't take your kid out just to avoid a test. I wish you could. Okay, so let's just review it really quickly. Parental rights. The purpose. Parents are partners with educators, administrators, and school district boards of trustees in their children's educations. Parents shall be encouraged to actively participate in creating and implementing educational programs for their children. So that means reviewing the curriculum. Let's discuss what is going to be taught. That is what the purpose of the education code is about. So don't you ever think, oh, this is above you, or you need to sit down, or you don't have the power to talk about the curriculum. Or you need an education, or you need a degree in order to be qualified to speak about the curriculum. No, the purpose of this Texas Education Code says the opposite. Next is mission. Parental involvement in the school is essential for maximum education achievement with the child. And objective number 1 was that parents will be full partners with educators in the education of their children. So here's your rights again, is records access, training material access, required consent, full information of the activities with your children, and removal from class. Okay, we're going to go do a couple true or false. True or false? An educator must notify the parents of all materials being taught to their child which the educator believes the parent may have a religious objection to. Okay, that's false. The parent has the right to access the teaching materials upon request. The educator, that teacher, does not have a duty to inform or to notify the parent if they think they might object to something. 2, okay? True or false? An educator must remove the child from the classroom while the objective material is being taught. False. The parent must remove the child, except for sex education, which requires an opt-in form. If a parent has a moral or religious objection to the teaching material, it's the parent's responsibility to remove their child from the classroom. All right, true or false? A school will produce all teaching materials for parents upon request. Well, true, but, right? Often it's only the classroom student book, not supplemental materials such as the teacher's manual. So you have to ask for it all. Okay? True or false? An educator must notify the parent of all conversations that they have with your child. False. A parent has the right to access all written records pertaining to your child. So, how would you know if your school district employee, let me go back. School district employees cannot encourage or coerce a child to withhold information from the parent. That is true. But how will you know if the employee has encouraged your child or not? You must foster a relationship of honest, open communication with your children. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about masks and vaccine mandates. Okay, so as of April 2022, mask mandates and vaccine mandates are not allowed, are barred, banned in the state of Texas via executive order by Governor Abbott. Now, executive order is not a law that has been enshrined by the legislature. An executive order has power to be obeyed like a law, but it's possible for the governor himself to overturn the executive order, or possible for a subsequent governor to come in and reverse an executive order. So interestingly enough, when these were both put in place in 2021, there was a list of school districts that the Attorney General of the state of Texas had to sue in order to make them, to stop them from mandating that students wear masks in the classroom. And so some of those are listed there at the bottom. All right, true or false? An executive order will remain enforceable for the foreseeable future. False. A court, the governor or a successor of the office of governor, can revoke that executive order. True or false? The next election for the seat of Texas governor is this November, 2022. True. Your vote matters. So as we sit comfortably knowing, there's no vaccine mandates, there's no mask mandates, what does it take for that to get overturned? One election. One election. All right, so here's a little graph that I found that's proof of vaccination, so vaccine passports is what they're calling it. The orange states, these are 11 states where the governors have banned proof of vaccination, vaccine passports through executive orders, right? Texas is one of those. Then you see the kind of blue color, which is 9 states where their legislatures have actually passed laws. So no matter the governor that comes through, they have passed laws that have banned vaccine passports. And then lastly, that teal color, these are 6 states which have done the opposite. In fact, they have COVID restrictions. If you can show proof of a vaccine passport, then you have access to extra rights, let's say. And you're exempt from some of the COVID restrictions. If you notice, those states are Washington, Oregon, California, Illinois, and New York. All right, so we are going to take a look, regardless of your status when it comes to vaccines, the focus here is on your children's perception of vaccinations, okay? So we're going to take a look at how Sesame Street and how is marketing vaccines to children.
How are you, Harvard kids feel?
Well, I feel okay. My wing hurts a little bit, but that's okay.
I made the decision to get Vicksburg vaccinated because COVID vaccines are the best way to keep yourself, our friends and neighbors, and me safe and healthy.
And it'll help me keep playing with my granny bird and all my friends at school.
Yeah.
It's okay to have questions about COVID vaccines for your kids. Get the latest facts by speaking to your pediatrician or healthcare provider.
Next, we're going to take a look at Elmo's dad, who gets the vaccine so he can enjoy his favorite things.
Elmo and I are feeling hopeful and excited. We're excited because lots of grown-ups are getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Soon lots of us will be able to do our favorite things again. Oh yeah, I can't wait. That's why I got the COVID-19 vaccine. So me and my family and neighbors can get back to playdates, trips, cookouts, and sports. What's that, son? Oh, she's gonna love that, Elmo. And now I get my vaccine, Elmo, Mommy, and Daddy can see her again soon.
With free COVID-19 vaccines, some of your days are ahead. Visit getvaccineanswers.org.
Next, we're going to take a look at Rosita, whose parents took her this morning to get the vaccine.
This is for my COVID vaccine. My mom and my papi took me to get it this morning.
Rosita, that's great. Getting the COVID vaccine is a great way to stay healthy.
See, my mommy and my papi said that it will help keep me, my friends, my neighbors, my abuela all healthy.
Your parents are absolutely right. COVID vaccines are now available for children 5 years and older. And the more people who get them, the better we're going to be able to help stop the spread of COVID and keep everyone healthy.
So why is Sesame Street marketing vaccines to children? Has anyone ever seen Sesame Street do this before with anything else? With a vaccine or a medical procedure? Think about it. So one of the risk factors that might come along with children wanting to follow what they see on Sesame Street or follow peer pressure, even against their parents' wishes, is this idea of implied consent. Now, the World Health Organization has published a pamphlet making their stance known what they believe on vaccinating children without express parental consent. The article has not been updated or redacted since it was published in 2014. And so while the article does acknowledge schools and communities, they give authorization, not consent, the piece goes on to championing vaccinating minors with parental implied consent. So it does talk specifically how this currently is not allowed in the United States, especially here in Texas. However, I believe in Australia, they do accept implied consent. So an excerpt from page 5 reads like this: obtaining consent from parents before vaccination becomes a challenge. This is especially true for school-based vaccination programs. Countries that use implied consent, Australia, consider the parent bringing the child for vaccination as an expression of informed consent. The capacities of older children and adolescents evolve toward independent decision-making as they mature. So to translate this is, they send a note home to you saying on April 10th, we are going to be giving vaccinations at school. You see it or you don't, you drop your child off to school on April 10th and they say, oh, they've applied for their child to receive the vaccine. Implied consent. You have brought your child and dropped them off, we have permission to vaccinate them. And what's interesting here is that they actually, this third paragraph, they cite to the Convention on the Rights of Children, combined with the obligation to respect their views and securing the best interest of the child, implies that the older children and adolescents should have a say in their consenting process. This is formally known as assent, which is interpreted as a moral obligation on the part of the healthcare worker to ensure that that child or adolescent agrees to the intervention. So if they sit down and the healthcare worker talks to them, are you sure you want to get the vaccine? And then they're thinking, well, Elmo got it, and Big Bird got it, and Rosita got it, and I want to protect my friends and my grandma. Yes, I do. It's something to watch out for, okay? It's a risk to watch out for. Next, we're going to look at Texas sexual education. In elementary school, it's called the 3 R's, rights, respect, responsibility. In middle school, it is called draw the line, respect the line. And I found this quote very interesting. A person is the architect of his or her own destiny. Do you remember that first Supreme Court case that said the parent directed the destiny of the child? Well, this is saying, no, it belongs to that 13-year-old girl or boy. Next is high school. Big decisions, comprehensive, is comprehensive sex education. All right, so this is just a little graph I wanted to show you initially about what is this, the SHAC, they say, the Student Health Advisory Council. So the SHAC is a group of people that is nominated or recommended for membership by members of the board of the school board of trustees. They recommend members to get onto the SHAC. Then once you're in the SHAC, it's supposed to be made up of parents and parents of students, and they will review curriculum, then make recommendations for the board of trustees. Then the board of trustees will make recommendations to the superintendent. That's important in a moment here. All right, so let's take a look at the law. The Texas Education Code, we're getting back to it. So any course, material, or instruction relating to human sexuality, STDs, HIV, or AIDS shall be selected by the Board of Trustees with the advice of the local Student Health Advisory Council, the SHAC. So let me say that one more time. Anything that has to do with human sexuality, STDs, HIV, AIDS, that's going to be taught in the school shall be selected by the Board of Trustees upon the advice of the SHAC, and must present abstinence, devote more attention to abstinence than from sexual activity rather than any other behavior, emphasize that abstinence is the only method that is 100% effective, must direct adolescents to a standard of behavior in which abstinence from sexual activity is the best way to prevent pregnancy, STDs, AIDS, HIV. And must teach the real life rates of what contraception using a condom is. So theoretical rates might be, oh, it's 99% effective, whereas actual rates are 18% effective. All right, so here's just a quick chart where we're going to take a look. Over here on the left is abstinence-only education, and then on the right is abstinence education, and then on the far left is comprehensive sex education. So here's an excerpt from some of the things that a teacher from the Austin ISD has put together on what she was instructed to teach her elementary school kids. So first graders, they begin with sharing details about genitalia in groups. They talk specifically about using words vulva, penis, anus. And they learn more about how to support others in gender nonconformity. When you get into second grade, this was a quote of something that she had to instruct her children, that there are some body parts that mostly just girls have, and some body parts that mostly just boys have. Being a boy or a girl doesn't have to mean that you have those parts. Then they read books like My Princess Boy, and then they discuss what consent is, what touch feels good, what doesn't, and the right to determine whether or not how they are being touched by somebody else. Fourth and fifth grade, they get into more detailed terminology. So this is the clitoris, it's very sensitive. They're coaching children to overcome that natural aversion to the topics because that might be closed-minded and offensive to somebody. So you teaching children to overcome that natural instinct when discussing private parts. So here, this is now middle school. That's elementary school. Now we're going to go into middle school. This is actually taken directly from the teaching material. I've highlighted a couple parts on here. You can't really read it that well, but so what will happen is that you'll be my 7th grade class, okay? I'll take a step over here. You'll be my 7th grade class. I can't read it, it's too big. It's too, okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, I'll just do it right here. Okay, ready? All right, so Tina and Marco, and this is a teacher's notes. If you have any students named Tina or Marco, emphasize that this Tina and Marco in the story, they could be any teens with any names. So read this aloud to your class. Tina is someone who's a little bit older than you, an 8th grader. Saturday night, Tina told her grandmother that she was going to do some homework at a friend's house, but she went to a party with her father, with a friend instead. When Tina got there, the house was a little dark and there were no parents. Music was playing and some kids were slow dancing. Other kids were drinking some punch that had alcohol in it. Tina was feeling uncomfortable because she couldn't find her friend, so she just had a drink. Just when Tina was wishing that someone would come and talk to her, Marco, someone Tina had seen at school, came over to her. Marco and his friends had been talking about doing it tonight. Marco joined in the talk even though he knew that he wasn't ready to do anything. Marco didn't know many girls at the party, so he was happy to see Tina. Marco got a drink and offered another one to Tina. Tina was unsure, but then she took it. Marco asked Tina to dance, and they began having a good time. Then Marco saw his friends watching, and he wanted to impress them, so he started to touch Tina in ways that felt kind of good, but were also a little embarrassing. The touching felt good to Tina too, but like Marco, she felt a little embarrassed. Tina wasn't sure whether she wanted Marco to touch her in that way. Both Marco and Tina were feeling uncomfortable because everybody was watching, but they were feeling a little woozy from the punch, and it was just so hard to think clearly. Tina decided that Marco was special, so she let him keep touching her. Soon, Marco's friends were signaling for them to go to a bedroom, so Marco suggested the idea to Tina. Tina wasn't sure whether it was a good idea, but because she liked Marco and wanted the night to be special, they went. Marco took Tina's hand and they started to go upstairs. They opened a door, it was a bathroom. They opened another door, it was a closet. They opened a third door, it was a bedroom. Tina and Marco went into the bedroom. Soon they were laying on the bed, kissing and touching. They didn't really talk about having sex, it just happened. After they did it, Tina and Marco found their friends and went home. So, first I want to ask, when I was reading that, could you see it in your mind? Did you feel a little bit like you were there? That it was an experience that maybe you were having? Not fully. This can be also a way of, as Patrick said, grooming. You start to slowly break down barriers where someone would never put themselves in a situation like this, to leave a home, to go drink, without their parents' permission, but now suddenly they're living it out through verbal, out loud storytelling, right? So then this is the instruction to the teacher. Say this. Because sex can be difficult to talk about, let's make sure that we're all understanding the same thing here in class. Sex can mean a lot of different things, but in this lesson, we're talking about vaginal sexual intercourse when a penis is put in a vagina. Penis and vagina might also be called genitals or sexual organs. Some people refer to them as private parts. Teacher's note. If it is appropriate for your class, you may want to define other types of sexual intercourse as well. Oral sex, when a person's mouth touches another person's genitals, or anal sex, when a penis is put in another person's anus. Does anybody here feel like that is inappropriate?
This is for a 12-year-old.
Yep. That is inappropriate? I think it's inappropriate for this setting, let alone 7th grade.
And it's teaching a child to lie.
Next, we're going to talk about, you're right. Next, we're going to talk about high school sex education. And so this is the teacher, Miss Ayala from the Austin ISD. Oops, hold on.
Did you know that about 30 school districts in the state of Texas use the Big Decisions Comprehensive Sex Ed program? This program is produced by an affiliate of Planned Parenthood. The most recent version, Big Decisions 2016, teaches transgender ideology and promotes homosexuality. They even remove the labels male and female from the reproductive charts. This is not visible on their website or in the outline that is presented to parents. This transition to openly promoting transgender ideology has been quietly, progressively, and deceptively done. Only those teachers or parents who see the actual curriculum would be aware of this deliberate change. What sex education is your school district using, and what's in it? Did you know that about 30 schools?
Okay, so opting in the state of Texas, for now, it is due to change. But per Texas law, your school must send you an opt-in form seeking parental consent for your child to attend sex education when it's scheduled to be taught. But you must stay vigilant against forgery. Like, ask when your children are going to see this, because, God forgive me, but I signed my mom's name to a few things. I don't think it was to get into a sex education class, but, just out of convenience, right? Oh, I need to sign this, whatever, I'm just gonna put her name on it. So stay vigilant of when it's gonna happen in your school. And remember your parental rights. A parent is entitled to remove their child temporarily from class or other school activity that conflicts with the parent's religious and moral beliefs. So if you find out that somehow your kid did get signed up to go to the sex education class, hey, it's happening today, not for you, I'm pulling you out, okay? Next is we're going to talk about a little bit more about content that's being taught to children in schools.
Sexual predators and comprehensive sex education both break down inhibitions. That's what they start with. They also gain trust with the child and then slowly start to get them towards sexual activity.
Anything goes. You are teaching children adult child sex, you're teaching transgender issues, and children are moldable and influenced by that.
They said, okay, now we need you and your team to be able to explain what homosexuality is to a 4-year-old student.
To introduce this kind of material at that age, frankly, is child abuse.
You're going to teach our children that it's okay for any two children of any age, of any sex, to have sexual intercourse with each other as long as two components are present. One's using a condom and they both give consent. Did I hear that correctly?
It's not a neutral venue. There's no such thing. Okay, the schools are doing your job. They are discipling your children, but they're not discipling them in the faith of Jesus Christ.
It's only the exceptional child that even survives that system. Most do not survive, most have not survived.
They believe that children are sexual from birth and that they deserve and have the right to be sexually active and to seek sexual pleasure. And if anyone is stopping them from that, then you are judging and oppressing them.
Even kindergarten now, they're wanting to teach them more and more perverse information and acts and put that into the children's minds. And once that poison is in the child's mind, it doesn't leave. They'll always remember what they learned. And it's by design, it's orchestrated.
In my humble opinion, it will be worse before it gets better.
Okay, true or false? An educator must get a parent's permission before speaking to the student about homosexuality, gender identity, transgender issues, or sexual orientation.
False.
False. LGBTQ issues are not considered sex education. So, as of 2020, Bostock versus Clayton County, Georgia, the U.S. Supreme Court has included gender identity and sexual orientation as protected classes under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So in 2021, the Biden administration issued an executive order extending the protection to housing, healthcare, and education. So we're going to talk a little bit about LGBTQIP2SAA issues and its prevalence in the school system. All right, so I thought this was interesting. In California, Jessica Conan claims that teachers who ran an LGBTQ plus club during a lunch hour coached her then 6th grade daughter to change her gender identity and start using a masculine name at school. She didn't know it had been 6 months that they had been calling her child by a male name instead of a female name. Her daughter, she pulled her out of the school, so the mother pulled her daughter out of the school, returned, and the daughter has since returned to using a feminine name and gender and is no longer showing signs of gender dysphoria. This is a picture of the mother as well as the attorney who's representing her for the American Civil Liberties. And next, here in Texas, a school district allowed a school library to hold children's reading hour with a man dressed in drag. It was later confirmed that the drag queen Miss Kitty Litter had a criminal record which included being arrested for prostitution in 1996. Miss Kitty Litter had made numerous other appearances in children's story hours at the Austin Public Library. So this is just demonstrative of just bad decision making all around. Here are some of the titles that you will find in schools around Texas. And next we're going to look at some of these books make it into the school libraries through not being sexual content, but through being LGBTQ friendly, okay? So in warning, it's very graphic. So It's Perfectly Normal is currently in school libraries in Austin, Texas. You're seeing someone masturbate in the far right. In the far left, you're seeing gay, homosexual sex, and heterosexual sex, and then someone trying to put on a condom. Next, there's this book called Lawn Boy that is found in Leander ISD. Here's an excerpt from it, but there's one thing I'd never tell Nick in a million years, not that it really matters. In 4th grade, at a church youth group meeting, out in the bushes behind the parsonage, I touched Doug Goebel's dick, and he touched mine. In fact, there were even some mouths involved. This is a book that is available to be read. And although you can see how there's LGBT content in there, it oversteps its bounds into the graphic, explicit, and pornographic. And more, I think no book more so than this. This is a comic book that's called Gender Queer that is currently available in some school libraries. So on the far right, you are seeing an image of a young girl who is trying to believes that she wants to be a boy, and she's having fantasies of being back in Greek ancient times as a young boy being fondled by a man. Then it talks explicitly about vibrator use. Then the third image is a sexting exchange. And then the fourth image is a graphic depiction of sex act. So parents protested the LGBT-themed graphic novel, Genderqueer, as being obscene. This has nothing to do with LGBT guys, like I understand that, but this is obscene. And they petitioned the district to remove this from the school library. Well, the school district, they conducted a formal review into the complaint, and they decided to keep the book in the school library. Next this is a book that is available in NEISD. It's called What Girls Are Made Of. Some of the content discussed here is, I laid a towel on the sheets because I bled, and then I watched Seth roll the condom over his male parts. And I rested my head on the pillow, and I watched his hands push into the flesh of my thighs. He separated them, and it describes in detail teenage heterosexual sex, but that it is graphic. It is pornographic. So, are these books at NEISD? Here's a way that you can find out. You go to gofollett.com. We're going to go here and take a look. Now, let's go to Roosevelt because, this is Texas. We're going to go to the state of Texas. We're going to go Roosevelt, oops, yeah. San Antonio High School, Roosevelt High School right there. They have a school board position that's going to be coming up here in May 7th. So we're going to go take a look at their library. Let's search. What girls are made of? There it is. You can go check it out. It is call number FARN. Oh, you're going to have to wait because it's currently checked out right now.
And the superintendent is supposed to be a Christian.
So,
yeah.
These are books that I have confirmed where What Girls Are Made Of is in their library. Roosevelt, Lee, Churchill, MacArthur, Reagan. Here. Now, what is the law? If you were to take that book, What Girls Are Made Of, if you were to take that genderqueer book and show that content, just any one of you, on the street right now, go to a 12-year-old, anybody that's under the age of 18, open that book and show them, and a police officer was standing right next to you, they would arrest you for breaking obscenity laws. and which says that for the purposes of this section, a person commits an offense if they knowing that the material is harmful and that the person is a minor, displays it to them, or exhibits, or even possesses it for sale to a minor. So how is this staying in school libraries? Well, it is an affirmative defense. Affirmative defense means an absolute defense. If that sale, distribution, or exhibition is for educational purposes. So they have taken a protection that was meant for sex education, anatomical, right? That makes sense, okay? This is not sex ed. It's sex ed, it's not obscene to show it to minors. And they have pushed it to the extreme. So now children are being exposed. A poor kid in Roosevelt High School is reading, opening up their mind to these graphics scenarios. So, civil rights or obscenity. Sexual orientation and gender identity are protected classes. The books shown have been found in school libraries in Texas. They're not considered sex education, they're considered LGBT content. The books demonstrate how this content discussing, promoting, and just engaging with the issues of sexual orientation to minors can quickly become obscene and inappropriate. So the answer to this right now, in the interim, until legal change is made, is that you gotta talk to your kids. And so sometimes these things can be difficult, but here's a little bit of advice on how to do that.
I was presenting to some parents in Oklahoma who were asking the same questions. And I asked them some questions. I said, what is it about talking to your kids about sex that's difficult for you? And I wanted to hear from them. I wanted them to say it out loud. They said, well, because it's so awkward, and it's so graphic, and it's so uncomfortable. And I said, well, who told you to be graphic? Where did you learn that? And they didn't know what to say. And those adults, those parents looked at me like they were little kids all of a sudden. And I said, what does God say in Genesis? This is as far as he went, Adam and Eve. Even God wasn't graphic with us. It's not necessary to be graphic with your children. So I raised, like I said in my talk earlier, I raised my son very differently. I definitely did not use comprehensive sex education to teach him. But I did do one thing that I think was really helpful. I'm really good at counseling skills and watching and observing and taking my time with him and others. And I said, okay, he'd ask me a question, and I'd say, okay, I'm gonna answer your question, and not fully, I'm gonna answer it just as much as I think you need to know right now at this age. But as soon as it starts to feel uncomfortable and you don't like it, I want you to hold up your hand and I want you to say, that's enough, and I'm not gonna question you, and we're just gonna move on and do something else. And he used it several times as he was growing up. He'd ask me a question, I'd start to answer it, and then he'd say, that's enough. I wouldn't question it, and we'd move on. And about a year later, he'd ask me again, and we would go a little further. So I agree with Pastor Jack here that you have to really observe and know your child, and you are the person that knows your child the best.
All right, so now we're going to talk about critical race theory and intersectionality. So the law. When I was doing some research on what is critical race theory, it's really interesting. I couldn't find anything. People were denying that it even existed. Oh no, critical theory doesn't exist. Critical race theory doesn't exist. And so, interestingly enough, the legislature, the state of Texas, says, well, we don't care what you think it is. We're going to ban the following. It is illegal. You cannot teach in a Texas school that one race or sex is inherently superior to another. You cannot teach that an individual is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. You cannot teach that an individual should be discriminated against partly because of their race. You cannot teach that a member of one's race or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race or sex. You cannot teach that an individual's moral character, standing, or worth is determined by their race or sex. You cannot teach that race or sex bears responsibility, or that an individual bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of their race or sex. You can't teach that meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic are inherently racist or sexist, or to oppress another race. You cannot teach that the advent of slavery in the United States was the true founding of the United States, or with respect to the relationship of American values, that slavery and racism were anything other than deviations from and betrayals of failures to live up to liberty and equality. So, based off that idea, definition of critical race theory, here's some of the issues, when it comes to nationally. So nationally, General Milley, the United States military, has advocated for teaching critical race theory to the United States Military Academy. He's even said that he wants to understand his own white rage. There is a new website that tracks where critical race theory is being taught in the United States. So if you take a look at this, this graphic that I put up, you can see where the white is where no bill has been introduced to ban critical race theory. You can see that the yellow is where bills have been introduced and they're being processed by the legislature, and then the orange is where bills have been passed and signed into law. So currently we have Idaho, Iowa, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Texas banning, whatever you want to call it, critical race theory. True or false? A Texas law banning critical race theory bans the teaching that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race. True. Oh, true. It does. Good. Critical race theory is banned at all educational institutions in the state of Texas. False. Only public schools. Private as well as higher education institutes can and do teach some form of CRT. CRT has been confirmed in the curriculum at Incarnate Word, UTSA, and St. Mary's University. In fact, I can testify that I went to a practice seminar on critical race theory. Didn't know what it was. It was labeled something about oppression. And I remember walking away being so confused. All right, so let's watch this little video.
Critical race theory. This is after the lack of another investigation from accuracy in media.
That new law doesn't mess with you guys?
No. Social learning. We can't say that anymore. It's mental health.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my God. No, we did have a big we already had a big blow up with that.
So we still do this on the phone?
So it's just, our mental health curriculum.
So we get the phone curriculum, not news.
If you are, then that really.
So you get that whole story?
Yes, you do. So we're trying to make that transition to.
It's probably better than this year too.
It's all mental health. Yeah. It's just all the different words you have to use. Of course we don't use it. We don't. So, yeah. Yeah. We're just learning how to learn around all of those weird things that are out there.
Social and emotional learning is often a Trojan horse to push critical race theory into classrooms, but many parents now have called out to that fact. As a result, some teachers have had to adapt.
I spoke to the superintendent's meeting last week, and the district was intentional to switch out social and emotional learning to behavior adaptations.
Like they
Change the labels and stuff. And I thought, it's kind of funny they have to do that, but I'm ashamed it's kind of brilliant. Because they don't care about this, even though it's the same as this, but it's the label.
Okay, so social emotional learning. Oftentimes, I think sometimes, I don't mean to imply that all teachers are trying to be deceptive or subvert. I think oftentimes that some teachers are stuck in the middle of this as well when it comes to vocabulary that they have to speak. But that's a side note. All right, so social emotional learning. We're going to take a look at the concept they were talking about. How is it critical race theory, just by another name?
Major concerns about social emotional learning are that it is a move away from academic education and an emphasis that is not healthy on attitudes, values, beliefs, and mindsets of children. And there's great subjectivity and difficulty even among adults to agree on those things. And it is also tied and closely linked to the Common Core and competency-based education disasters that are currently happening in the United States. Social emotional learning is a major danger to academic achievement, to privacy, to health. There's a major concern about the scientific accuracy of this. The research base just is not there, despite all of the claims by proponents. What is especially concerning about SEL assessment is that the data from those assessments, which is often collected without parental knowledge or consent, is put into state longitudinal databases that can follow children for life.
SEL represents the continued minimization of true academic work with very little research basis to back it up. A second finding is the substantial and troubling problems and consequences of SEL, especially to student privacy, to autonomy, individuality, and even freedom over their own futures. Now, a few examples of that. First, with respect to implementation. Many of these programs are essentially psychological evaluations performed not by professionals who have had many years of training to do this, but by already overburdened teachers and administrators who are given a little training and then told to go and improve children's psyches and personalities. The assessment of children under these programs is admitted even by the most enthusiastic SEL proponents to be hit or miss. And these amateur evaluations will presumably be included in the student's school data files. Another problem, mistaken evaluations can lead to serious consequences to children, putting many of them on the road to further unnecessary evaluations or mistaken diagnoses, and perhaps even dangerous psychotropic medications that are already overprescribed in this country. And then I think our third central finding is that through SEL, the government is grossly overstepping its boundaries to supposedly benefit society and the economy in particular. By what right does the government presume to administer psychological and mental health evaluations to children, perhaps without their parents' permission? By what right does the government decide what is the correct personality for a free American citizen? By what right does government seek to transform a free citizen into the person that the government deems most useful to the state and to corporations?
So here's a tweet from, Dr. Carolyn B., who says, if your kid's school accepts CARES Act money, then social emotional learning is in your school. It was in the bill. It's 10 times scarier than critical race theory. SEL is teachers practicing psychology without a license. It's the tool that they use to break down a kid's defenses. Once their defenses are gone, it's easy to indoctrinate them. They get sucked into groupthink while their brain is forming. Anything that they learn before that they're 8 years old is almost impossible for them to unlearn. SEL is the delivery mechanism for every bad idea that the left has. And I'm reminded immediately of what Mike had said. I take my kid to school to learn reading, writing, arithmetic. Why are you talking about their emotional state? Why are you talking about their mental state? Why are you talking about morality at school? So what it is that it's surveying kids about what's going on inside of their head, literally with a survey, and then performing psychological interventions to make sure that they don't engage in wrong think. So the definition is that SEL is the vital framework through which people of all ages acquire skills in working toward their own unique goals, comprehending and managing their emotions. Well, people who intentionally raise their children might rightly say that working towards a child's own unique goals, comprehending and managing their emotions, is a parent's job. So here's an example of some of the surveys. So this, I can only find examples online from North Carolina, so I apologize, this is national, but here it is. How do you describe your gender identity? 6th grader. Are you male? Are you female? Are you non-binary? Gender fluid? Are you not sure? Are you all of them? Do you identify as transgender? Yes, no, or not sure? Which of the following best describes your sexual orientation? Straight, gay, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, questioning my sexual orientation, other, not sure. Over here we have religious preferences, what's your race? Next is talking more about race. I love this one, number 8. Do you believe that people in the LGBTQ+ deserve rights? Yes, I think they deserve rights. No, I don't think that community deserves rights. What happens if you have a child who has a moral conviction that homosexuality is prohibited and by God, and says, no, I don't know what that means, what rights means, but I'm going to go ahead and say no. And then it's put in their permanent school file. What do you think that says? That they're going to be targeted towards even more indoctrination to change that mindset, or help them to understand, or to not discriminate, and then it will forever be in their permanent file. I found this really interesting over here, privilege exercise. I do or do not have these privileges. I have gender privilege, I have ethnic privilege, education privilege, modern utilities privilege. So Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, TEKS, TEKS are the state standards for what Texas students should know and be able to do. Well, the current Texas Health Standard covers all of the core SEL competencies, and that is outlined by CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. It's marketed to teachers, and so teachers have to teach this. It's marketed to teachers as a means of helping children to develop self-regulation, to judge, but what happens is that they end up judging any thought or feeling besides optimism and happiness as being bad. They escape the warnings of their feelings of their conscience, so that they feel good when they are, even though they've done or experienced something that they should feel bad about. And here we go, you again, support for CASEL. Guide to Effective SEL program is provided to you by the Chan Zuckerberg Institute and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. True or false? If your child's school is implementing Common Core, receiving CARES money, then SEL is being taught to your children. True. True. The current Texas Health Standards covers all the SEL competencies. So, multi-million-dollar nonprofits funded by tech companies have financially contributed to CASEL. True. Support is given by Zuckerberg and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. All right, guys. Now we're going to get to the stuff that really irks me. Property taxes. I don't know if anybody's looked recently, but they just came out with raising your value of your home. Thank you, California, and whoever else is moving here and buying homes for double what they're worth. The average residential home sale in 2020 in Bexar County was $273,000, pardon me. And so they had to pay a tax of $5,700. Well, in 1 year, the average home sale went up to $312,555. That is $6,626 in tax. So, as of April 2022, the median property tax in Bexar County is $312,000, and that means $6,600 is being paid in taxes. In Texas, the median property tax on a house that costs $312,000 is $5,653. Bexar County is 17% higher than the state average. The United States, the median property tax on a $312,000 house is $3,281. This means that Bexar County is 102% higher than the national average. When we take a look at how much tax, the market value of the tax that's being brought in, single-family residence in 2021 was $125 billion. Once they collect everything that's owed to them, it would be $160 billion for single-family residence. That's an increase of 27%. Then we had an increase in multifamily, that's increased 24% to 23.9 billion. And then for commercial, the tax market value has increased from 39 to 47. Overall, Bexar County over this past year, because of the increase in the value of your home, has increased 22.4%. So where does that property tax money go? It goes to pay for schools. It's distributed to schools, cities, and other local governments, and they spend it on roads, hospitals, fire departments, and other programs, including schools. However, your tax money that you pay for your home does not go to your local elementary school where your kid is attending. They may not go to your district or benefit your child at all. Parents don't have ownership over their tax dollars that are being used for educational funding. Tax money is given to the government and then is distributed to other entities. It's an unfair system that creates unwanted government streams. So one solution is school choice. And this distributes educational funds in a manner that follows the student to any school they go to. So if your student is going to the school that's right down the block from your house, your money goes there. If you homeschool your student, your money goes there. If you send your student to a private school, charter school, wherever it is, your money follows the student. So true or false? Property taxes you pay go directly to your local elementary, middle, and high schools. We know this is false. Property taxes are allocated to school districts and can be used, funneled, for less affluent schools. Bexar County has the highest property tax rate in all of Texas. Close, but actually not true. Borden County has the lowest effective tax rate with 0.34%, and El Paso has the highest with 2.24. So what does that mean? All of this, it's been a lot. All of this is a call to action, is that parents, it's not like it was, I think, even 20, 30 years ago, where you send your kid to school and they, learn the basics, and you say, I went to sex education 2 days when I was, a sophomore in high school. It's not that anymore.
It was anatomy.
Yeah, anatomy. Now it's very much changed. You must, I know it's difficult with jobs and everything else, but you must be a watcher on the wall. You have to engage. Again, we take a look at the Student Health Advisory Council, the SHAC. Ways you can engage is you can run to be on the school board, to be a member, or to be nominated to be on the SHAC, the Student Health Advisory Committee. Remember, these are the people who are presenting and reviewing and implementing the sexual education, as well as other health education for our students. One issue I know that Mr. Mercer brought up is that the National School Board sent a 6-page letter to the Biden administration requesting that protesting parents who do show up at school board meetings across the country be labeled and arraigned, prosecuted as domestic terrorists. Now, the National School Board Association has since recanted and apologized for that letter and removed it from their website. You can read it in the link below. In response to that, 18 states, including California, most recently, have left the National School Board Association. But why is Texas still a member of the National School Board Association? So here's how you can act. One is pay attention. Pay attention to what is going on. 2, show up and speak up. We have these local elections that are going to be on May 7th. Opt out or opt in for your child. Pay attention when sex education is coming their way, or other things that you morally, religiously have objection to. Deny permission. Read every form that comes to you at the beginning of the school year. Prepare for homeschooling. It might get worse before it gets better. And so you have to be prepared to pull your child out in order to save their innocence. 6 is alert others. There's lots of websites that we're going to list here where parents are talking about what has been done in their schools in different districts, and they put it in a database, and you can search and find out those resources. And then run for school board. Like I was saying, we have Madison, Lee, and Roosevelt. We have candidates that have been endorsed by the San Antonio Family Association, and we would love for you guys to show your support. This is how it's got to where it is now. And if it needs to change, It requires us to act, to show up. And lastly is pray. If my people who are called by my name, not other people, my name, people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. All right. So again, one more time: parental rights. Parents are partners. Parental involvement in school is essential for the maximum education. Parents will be full partners. So once you do go and speak up at that educational, or that school board meeting, you have a right to be there. You have a right to records access, training materials, required consent, full information, and you can pull your kid out of class, remove it from class. All right? And this is true as it ever was. I take this quote from Ida B. Wells. Other people have been ascribed to it. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And so here are some of the resources that you can go ahead and follow up with to stay more informed. All right, thank you, and here you go, Patrick.
Can you hear me? All right. Thank you, Gary, for fixing those batteries. How about a round of applause for Ms. Cabrera, Saunders-Cabrera. Jordan, excellent job, fantastic presentation, and thank you very much, because that takes a lot of time, a lot of research, and we benefited from the fact you already go to law school, and even though you might have learned part of the law that you weren't as familiar with before, but now you do even more so. And so thank you very much for that. It's really great because in this same Christopher Hall, we help we show the mind polluters, which was in her presentation, and Miss Monica Klein, as Mike Knuffke referred to, stood right over here and talked. And as we did that conversation and had a chance to visit with Monica Klein again, it had been since January 2019 when we held the legislative briefing at the Capitol, that we hadn't had a chance to visit. But she just moved to Fredericksburg. And as a result of moving to Fredericksburg, she came up, she was helping another parent who had come across bad books in the library. Not only pornographic books, but also books promoting incest. And through that reunion with her, and having shown the mind polluters here and having a chance to talk to her, we connected her with 2 attorneys that would help represent Fredericksburg ISD, those parents, to help get those books out. And right after that happened, these 2 parents worked with the superintendent of Fredericksburg ISD and got the books removed. And so it was a great accomplishment in a very small way. So one of the things we're doing, and why we're doing this seminar, this educational seminar, is to ring the bell, to be watchers on the wall, to help educate you. So, and that wouldn't have been done without Jordan. So thank you very much again, Jordan. Thank you to Monica Klein, the mind polluters, and thank you to Ken Mercer, State Board of Education member. How great it is to have him here. And I want to give you a little feedback on just a few minutes on how this is connected, because the sex education curriculum that Jordan covered here is in Northeast Independent School District. Draw the Line, Respect the Line was passed on May 9th, 2016, and implemented the following school, later in September, August, September. That curriculum has been instructed again just over the last couple weeks. I have a friend whose child is going through that chose to opt them in. I encourage them not to, they opted them in. And at Tejada Middle School, they have been showing that just now, Draw the Line, Respect the Line. That Draw the Line, Respect the Line, it's important for you to know, comes from California. So we're not only getting a bunch of people in from California, moving to Texas, we have sex education curriculum coming in from California, and that's completely made by a sister organization of Planned Parenthood California. So not only do we have Planned Parenthood's business plan in Northeast Independent School District, we also have this curriculum from California. We have to get this out. And I have to share this with you because we have a school board election coming up on May 7th. Early voting is already going on. Highly encourage you to get out and vote. Early voting goes on until May 3rd, and then election day on May 7th. You can go to SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com for more information. But What's happening in District 2, Roosevelt High School area, District 3 is Lee High School area, District 7, Madison High School area. We have a chance to elect school board members who will truly represent parents and protect children. And because while the 3 incumbents in this race, who are all running for re-election, were not on the school board on May 9, 2016, they have each individually verbally supported the Draw the Line, Respect the Line sex education curriculum by Planned Parenthood California. They have verbally admitted that they support it. As a matter of fact, one in District 7 in Madison High School area actually admitted that she was a Catholic and she had no problem with the sex education curriculum. This is reprehensible and has to be investigated, and your vote matters. We have to have a well-formed conscience. I was just on Guadalupe Radio Network radio talk show yesterday talking about faithful citizenship, a document put out by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. And in faithful citizenships, we have a duty to have a well-formed conscience and to participate in the public square in the voting process, to be responsible citizens. That is in the very first part of faithful citizenship, the document put out by the USCCB. That's why we do this for education. So Planned Parenthood's curriculum is in NEISD. The other curriculum that was in high school was called Big Decisions. That Big Decisions curriculum started right here in the city of San Antonio. The former medical director of San Antonio Metropolitan Health District, a woman named Dr. Janet Rigolini, got a grant while she was medical director for San Antonio Metropolitan Health District, got a grant and created a new organization called Healthy Futures Texas, closely aligned with Planned Parenthood. And they sold that to Northeast Independent School District and other school districts in San Antonio. There are 16 school districts in the city of San Antonio. There are other districts that have done it. And one of the things that Monica Klein said in there, that if you oppose, in the Mind Polluters, if you oppose this curriculum, then they say that your organization is oppressing you. I can tell you that having seen the Big Decisions curriculum years ago and having read it when they implemented it in Northeast Independent School District for high school, it says in there that if your religion tells you sex before marriage is wrong, then your religion is oppressing you. We have this in Northeast Independent School District. We have to get this out of here. So like Jordan said, sign up to become a member of the SHAC, Student Health Advisory Council. Run for school board. Right now, vote. If you're in districts 2, 3, or 7, in Roosevelt, Lee, or Madison high school areas, make sure that you're registered to vote. There has been some movement with the redistricting, but go vote. There's other things on the ballot, including the City of San Antonio bond election of $1.2 million. Northside ISD, Northside Independent School District, has a bond election of almost $1 billion. There are very important issues that need your input on. This is the way you give your input to the school board and other elected representatives to hear from you. Too often, over the last couple of years, school boards have pushed back and not wanted to hear from parents. You have an opportunity to be heard at the ballot box. Go vote with a well-formed conscience and exercise your right to vote. Finally, in connecting this all together, Big Decisions in high school, Northeast Independent School District High School, Draw the Line, Respect the Line in middle schools in NEISD would not be there if it wasn't for the independent consultant of the San Antonio Metropolitan Health District. Yes, the city of San Antonio has a role in this. Your tax dollars are at work wherever. San Antonio Metropolitan Health District acted as the independent consultant and acts as the independent consultant for all 16 school districts in the city of San Antonio. They acted as such for Northeast Independent School District in early 2016 and made several presentations. And out of all their presentations that they made, they never once presented a curriculum for sex education. It was abstinence only. They only presented curriculums that were what they call abstinence plus or sexual risk reduction, not sexual risk avoidance. Avoidance is abstinence. Reduction is anything goes. There's a mantra within Draw the Line, Respect the Line that is portrayed in supplemental material from ETR, the sister organization of Planned Parenthood California, that goes like this: be safe, experiment, and have fun. That is grooming. That is part of the supplemental material. One of the chapters and lessons that Jordan showed you in this video, in this seminar with Tina, is we went to the school board, Northeast Independent School District superintendent, and the school board members at the time who were on the board, and said, are you going to show and teach Tina and Marco? And they said, no, we won't show teen on market. We won't teach that. But I can tell you from being there in firsthand and fighting this issue and educating on it with many other people, when they passed the sex education curriculum called Draw the Line, Respect the Line for middle school, they passed it in total. There were no restrictions in any way, shape, or form to prevent teen and market from being taught or any other lesson or supplemental material. So it's very important that we're educated and the parents can see all the material. So when you go to look at the sex education material, look at the supplemental information as well. You can find that information at SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com as well. Just search there. And so in that Northeast Middle School District, the City of San Antonio, Bexar County Tax Appraisal District, many and the other government entities, you have to be conscious that they have a connection and a relationship and influence in how they impact each other. So getting out the vote is crucial. With that, there's hope. Not only in the resurrection of our Lord, that we just celebrated Easter Sunday, we're in Easter season now, in the second weekend of Easter, and I highly encourage you to look at and read the Gospels and see how Jesus rose from the dead and conquered death. And when the stone was rolled back, an angel sat on top of that stone as a sign of victory. His victory. That his victory can overcome all things. No matter what your state of life is, he can solve it all. So seek him out. Rejoice in the season of Easter. Amen. Hallelujah. And then seek out good information. Whatever it might be, know the resources, know the source, and see if there's any money tied to it. Because there's also a memorandum of understanding, a MOU, between Northeast Middle School District, City of San Antonio, and University Hospital, who oversees and administers sex education in Northeast ISD. There is a contract, a financial contract between them. So with that, is there any questions that we have by anybody? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
In reference to the tax, the property tax?
Yes, ma'am.
I strongly recommend that everybody contact Michael Berlanga.
So he'll be here next week.
Yeah, we had a huge win. We
Yes.
went in arbitration. Our house had been appraised at 237. I requested 180.
Yeah.
We got 180.
Fantastic. He does good work. And so we will be having another, so thank you for that lead in, that ties in perfectly, because what Jordan showed you in summary tonight, we will be having next week, Wednesday, May 4th, right here at Christopher Hall. We'll be having a property tax protest education seminar with none other than Realtor and CPA, Michael Berlanga, who we've done this for years and helping educate them, educate the public. It's free. It'll be held right here, thanks to ChristopherHall.org. And you'll have an opportunity to do that. Bring your Bexar County tax appraisal or whatever county you live in. Bring the appraisal district's evaluation so you can fill out and do what you need to right here on the spot, and they can help you. He can help you file your protest right then. It's a very easy way to do so and get it filed, and then you can have your conference, your informal first conference, either on the phone or in person, and do that. So we'll walk through that and go through it in detail, how you can protest this legally. And while protest might have a negative connotation to it, this is a legal process granted to you by the state of Texas, the state statute, that you can legally protest your property taxes. So come learn that information in that educational seminar put on by the San Antonio Family Association. Yes, Mike?
The volume of people that protest makes the difference.
Absolutely.
And we all need to protest it.
That's right. And one of the things that Michael Blanc would tell you that Escamita, who's the chief appraiser for Bexar County Appraisal District, says that he testifies and says that the state of Texas will pay more attention when more people protest. Yeah. And so it's another way of exercising your right, just like exercise your right to vote, exercise your right to protest your property taxes and come and protect yourself and your finances. You know what better to do with your money than the state of Texas does, or any Bexar County, or the city of San Antonio, or Independent School District, because part of that is Independent School District. So while we're on that topic, Northeast Independent School District Board of Trustees will say they reduced your property tax rates, and they did, about that much. The same with the City Council of San Antonio, about that much. Can't even see light through that. How important it is to have your representatives, your elected representatives, to be conservative when it comes to your property taxes and respecting your money. Nobody respects your money like you do. So best way to do it is keep it in your pocket and fight that, and make sure your representatives are going to attest to what's good for you and good for the common good.
Also, last time I mentioned this, and today it was brought up in reference to the social emotional learning. They're teaching teachers and they're getting them to watch videos on how to teach critical race theory through social emotional learning.
Yes.
They're grooming children to be racist.
Yes.
And there's a video from the Valley that they're showing at UT and Tyler, and I guess other UT systems. They're comparing little Mexican migrant children to the white affluent people. And then they're asking the children, how do you feel that Susie has a nice house and you don't? How do you feel, blah, blah, blah. So they're teaching them to be racist.
Yeah. And how sad that is. And
also, parents need to know that that doctor from the Bexar County Metropolitan System is the authority of every single nurse in every single 16 school districts in Bexar County.
Thanks for bringing that up.
And she was from Planned Parenthood.
I actually meant to bring that up, Betty, and thank you very much. Real quick, the San Antonio Metropolitan Health District has a medical director, and she is the former medical director of Planned Parenthood in South Texas, and a licensed abortionist to this day. And decision was made by none other than Mayor Ron Nirenberg to install her in 2018 and to continue to promote this idea of all these things we've talked about and many of the things that Jordan addressed in the presentation today. So how important it is to know the inner workings and how these things are related. So thank you very much for that. We will close in prayer. And again, you can find out more information at SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com. Sister organization, SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com, is a political organization. You can find endorsements on this race and other races at TexasFamilyAction.com, TexasFamilyAction.com to get a voter's guide. You can also reach it there through NEISD VoteForChange.com. NEISD VoteForChange.com is in Northeast Independent School District. So go to those. Those are some great resources for you to know, and you get to form your conscience to make a well-informed vote that'll be good for you, good for the common good, and lead to long-term domestic prosperity instead of failure. With that, let us close in prayer. We pray for our country, our state, our county, and our city, and our school districts. God our Father, giver of life, we entrust the United States of America, the state of Texas, Bexar County, and the city of St. Anthony, and all independent school districts in the city of San Antonio and throughout Texas to your loving care. You are the rock on which this nation was founded. You alone are the true source of our church, rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Reclaim this land for your glory and dwell among your people. Send your spirit to touch the hearts of our nation's leaders with an intense desire to fulfill the responsibilities that protect individuals, marriages, families, and long-term domestic prosperity. Open our public officials' minds and all people who live in America to the inestimable worth of human life and to the responsibilities that accompany human freedom. Remind your people that true happiness is rooted in seeking and doing your will. Through the intercession of your Holy Spirit, grant us the courage to reject the culture of death and indifference, socialism, communism, egalitarianism, globalism, and totalitarianism, and bless us with your abundant grace, the desire, strength, and fortitude to be courageous conduits to help bring about a new culture of life, freedom, and responsibility, marriage, and family. We ask for your divine assistance, especially during this election time, for the protection of our constitutional republic, for the protection, defense, and promotion of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We ask for your divine assistance to help us be and remain faithful to you, and for our collective petitions to your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. With that, I'd like to say thank you again to our presenters, Ms. Jordan Saunders-Cabrera, Mr. Ken Mercer, former State Board of Education. Thanks to the ChristopherHall.org, Knights Columbus Council 7613, For rental information, christopherhall.org, and thank you to the San Antonio Family Association for putting its time and resources into this. My name is Patrick Von Dohlen. On behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, I want to say thank you for watching, but don't just watch. Take it into prayer and take your prayer into action. At the ballot box, go vote. Take your neighbors and friends with you, and learn more, seek it out, and educate other people. If you can do that with 12 other people, we will change our own community, we will change society, and we will bring about a new culture of life, marriage, freedom, and family. Thank you very much for your time and attention. May God bless you. Happy Easter, and have a great day.
Michael was telling me